Jackass 3D! Wow, I have no idea that they have made this before. Unlike the previous films where they completely made something extravagant and more brilliant than ever before, Jackass 3D takes in a whole new 3D approach. God, I wonder how they feeling that day.
What'd it feel like?
It felt like shit.
Released in 2010, Jackass 3D sees the return of the Jackass crew for the third time, as they experience the now new 3D format, which became a thing ever since the 50s and the 80s. And ever since its theatrical release, it has become one of the most commercially successful films ever. And sure enough, it's still commercially successful even to this very day. This film now contains even more stunts and even more outrageous things that you have ever seen since Jackass 1 and Jackass 2. But does it really stack up to the other previous films from its era? Well, probably it should have been simple. But what can be said about Jackass 3D? Could it be an idea that's going down in history? Or was it just all shrugged off as just some stereoscopic nightmare from the heavens? Jackass 3D might as well be the second Jackass film that I have seen, right after Jackass 2 from 2006. So basically, it ain't no short feat. So why don't we start getting into it by looking into 10 things that you probably may not know about Jackass 3D. The one film that is basically so stereoscopic, you will never know why it exists. So, let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Johnny Knoxville. Welcome to Jackass.
Number 10. The questionable 3D approach. It was 2009, and the remaining Jackass films that came out at that time was Jackass 1, which came out in 2002, and Jackass 2, which came out 4 years later in 2006. It was about this time that the Jackass crew are about to go into the third dimension, all because of the 2009 James Cameron film Avatar, which became a 3D juggernaut when it was being released at that time. Now it was time for the Jackass crew to go things in a bigger, bolder direction. But what kind of direction did they have to go with in order to make the 3D setup? And also, what was the first scene that was done in order to make it happen? Well, there were several camera tests that were made using the 3D setup. But the first scene that was made for it was very questionable and very provocative indeed. It was a scene where Christopher Pontius has a helicopter tied around to his dick, and for whatever reason, it got the green lit anyway. Because, let's face it, Jackass 3D was greenlit all because of that scene. Now usually when a Jackass film is being made, it's either the fact that the cast may get a film deal, or that a previous film may be very successful. But I mean, come on. Is it really the fact that this scene was the reason why Jackass 3D was greenlit in the first place? But not only that, it was one of the many few scenes that stayed in the final film, despite the graphic nudist nature of that scene. And even though Jackass 3D was made in the wake of Avatar's 3D popularity or success, the very first 3D film to be released in the 21st century was the Walt Disney Productions animated film Chicken Little. Despite all this, Jackass 3D went into production, all because of some guy tying a toy helicopter to his own dick.
That's why I think this movie can be great. Because people forget. Sorry, bro.
Okay, so let me get this straight here. Jackass 3D was made because of Chris Pontius tying the helicopter to his dick. I'm not kidding, this is real. Number 9. The crew went full 3D. Jackass 3D sees the third appearance of the Jackass crew, much like they did for Jackass 1 and Jackass 2, with Johnny Knoxville, Bam Margera, a delightfully sober Steve-O, Ryan Dunn, Christopher Pontius, Preston Lacey, who has more speaking lines than in the previous films, Aaron McGahee, Dave England, and Jason Acuna, all returning for Jackass 3D. Jeff Tremaine returns for the third time as the director of Jackass 3D. as does Where the Wild Things Are director Spike Jonze. MTV Productions came back for the third time to produce the film, as does Dick House Entertainment, just like how they produced Jackass 1 and 2. And Paramount Pictures, along with their new Viacom byline, came back for the third time to not only co-produce the film, but to distribute the film as well, as much as they did when they co-produced and distributed the 1980 box office failure, Airplane. Plus it has some appearances from Richard Kosick, Lance Bangs, and Dmitry Lashkevich. And Trip Taylor. Yep, that's right. I basically mistaken Rip Taylor for Trip Taylor. Whoops, sorry about that. So basically what it is that Jackass 3D sees the same crew from the previous films returning, and the less we said about Bam's parents, the better we can ignore it. Seriously, are they even necessary? I basically found them to be very annoying. They were annoying in the first film, and they're also annoying in the second film, but somehow they calmed them down. But I still find them very fucking annoying. Number 8. Guests of the Third Dimension.
Now there's no problem.
Unlike Jackass 2, which had John Waters, Jackass 3D has a lot of guest appearances, some of which you might not know, but others you do know, such as the Dudsons, Loomis Fall, Brandon Novak, Will the Gaspasser, and Stifler from American Pie himself, Sean William Scott. However, there was actually another guest appearance in Jackass 3D, but for some reason was cut from the film. That of course was Hit Me Baby One More Time hitmaker, Britney Spears. What? Britney Spears was in this? But for some reason she got cut? Where she took on the Pooh Cocktail Supreme instead of Steve-O, which of course made it into the final film. And oh boy, did they went the hard way with that one.
Hi, I'm Britney Spears, and this is the Pooh Cocktail Supreme.
So basically what happened was that Britney Spears was cut out of Jackass 3, much like what Jackass 2 did when they cut 50 Cent out of the film. And it probably would have been way more similar to the Don Vito 2 pull that was cut out of Jackass 2. Number 7. 3D filming, but on private ground. Filming for Jackass 3D began on the 25th of January of 2010, despite the fact that the camera tests were done back in late 2009. But unlike the previous films, which were shot and filmed in front of the public, it was decided to have the film be shot on private property, so that the people of the public would not know where the heck they are. And it's because of all the filming of Jackass 3D that JackassWorld.com site was completely shut down. Hence the image on the skull with the 3D glasses with the words "Gone Filming." And it features the now fucking legendary and super iconic Skull and Crutches logo with the 3D glasses. But have you ever noticed something about this version of the Skull and Crutches logo? The 3D glasses were colored yellow, whereas opposed to the actual logo where the 3D glasses are actually white. Jackass 3D was the first ever Jackass film not to be shot entirely in the international foreign landscape, as it was shot entirely in the US of A. Similar to how the film Twister was when it was originally going to be shot in the UK, but Jen DeBont decided to shoot it in and around Oklahoma, which was basically the USA. So it kinda actually means that Jackass 3D was the first ever Jackass film not to be shot in a foreign country, which is just odd. That and the fact that Jackass 3D was shot entirely on private property, with the 3D cameras, even though the first scene that was shot with those cameras was actually a scene of Chris Pontius having a toy helicopter tied to his dick. Number 6. The slow motion Jackass film. If you can believe it, Jackass 3D is many things. It may also be not many things. What you can really tell is that Jackass 3D was among the first films to feature the Phantom camera, which was used to film the slow motion sections. Yes indeed, the opening scene as well as the infamous closing scene was the one that was using the Phantom cameras, as well as several points in the film that actually used the slow motion cameras. Several tests were made using those cameras, one of which was featured in the film's original trailer, where we see Aaron McGahey getting a fish slapped to his face. In fact, the Phantom cameras have made very good use for Jackass 3D, as well as the following other Jackass films like Jackass Forever and Jackass Best and Last. Those of which I have to see. Number 5. Recycled stunts. Jackass 3D is known for its many stunts, such as, for example, the high five.
What's up, midget? High five!
However, there were two stunts that were actually recycled. The first of which was the Lamborghini tooth pull, in which Johnny Knoxville and Bam Margera hop into a Lamborghini in order to remove Don Vito's tooth. However, that scene was only shown in the original theatrical trailer for Jackass 2, and was cut from the film because of Don Vito's arrest in 2006. So for Jackass 3D, it was decided that Aaron McGahey would take over instead. It was originally going to be Brandon Novak, but for some reason he got imprisoned, so Aaron McGahey took on the part instead. Where unlike the Don Vito version, which was cut from Jackass 2 and was only shown in the theatrical trailer for that film, the Aaron McGahey version of the Lamborghini tooth pull in Jackass 3D stayed in.
It's time that bitch gets out of my face.
Are you excited about this?
That's a good point.
Then of course there was the Pooh Cocktail Supreme, which as mentioned had Britney Spears taking on the part, but was actually cut from the film in order to be replaced with Steve-O's version instead. This was actually an upgraded cinematic version of the Pooh Cocktail that was shown in the original TV series that aired back in 2000, specifically in episode 1. But in that version, it was Johnny Knoxville that took on the part, and originally he was actually up for it, but he decided to go with Steve-O instead. As for the Christmas tree, well, it was originally done on the Dudsons, where for some reason, Jarlo Nasala did the stunt originally. So the Jackass crew decided to do a revision to that stunt, but with the Dusons who originally did that stunt. There was also another stunt that had to be done in the snow, where originally the Jackass crew had to go on a bouncy castle which has to be slid down on a slope. However, for some reason the cast backed out. Number 4. Injuries. There was a lot of injuries that were done during the making of Jackass 3D, and a lot of which were shown on screen. Half of the Jackass crew that was used to make Jackass 3D have been hospitalized, with Bam Margera having 3 broken ribs and a broken shoulder along with a twisted ankle. Loomis Fall had suffered a compound fracture of his clavicle after an improper landing during a stunt involving an umbrella and a jet engine. Aaron McGahey had his face broken when a tube was pulled by a Lamborghini. And yes, there's actual blood. And Johnny Knoxville had his teeth completely knocked out by a flying penis in the closing scene. There was actually a Rocky scene that was going to be in the film, but was cut for some reason, in which it was Richard Cossack who gets punched. And speaking of the Rockies, Preston Lacey also got injured in the Rockies section as well. And just to add to the ruins of all the injuries surrounding Jackass 3D, Bam Margera was hit in the head with a baseball bat, as the original opening to Jackass 3D was going to feature the Jackass crew getting hit in the head every single time, with the slow motion phantom cameras. But speaking of that opening, number Jackass 3D. A special opening was made before Jackass 3D. Jackass 3D opens up with the Jackass crew literally all dressed up and entering a random area with a rainbow somehow. But for whatever reason, before Jackass 3D, there was a special opening that was actually created in order to lead into the introduction of that film. That of course was presented by none other than MTV animated megastars Beavis and fucking Butthead. Wait, what? Beavis and Butthead are in this? Yep, apparently so. Beavis and Butthead made an appearance in Jackass 3D. However, it was actually a special opening that was actually made for it, in which the 2 MTV crackheads decided to present the film and tell the audience that the film is now presented in 3D.
You will see the jackasses like no human being has ever seen them before. In 3 dimensions.
In order to experience this new dimension, you must put on the special glasses that you were given in the lobby.
Despite the fact that it was actually used for the theatrical release and on some home media releases, and more recently, the 24-hour stream. But for whatever reason, this special opening was cut from every single TV airing of the film, despite the fact it was being credited in the closing credits. And somehow it may have been part of the promotion for Jackass 3D. Speaking of the promotion for Jackass 3D, there were a series of alternative posters which featured the crew of Jackass in a targeted spot. which basically reminded them of the infamous Rolling Stone cover. Whereas the teaser poster features the film's title, and the main poster featuring an image of Johnny Knoxville getting hit by a bull, which was actually a part of the Roller Buffalo stunt that was seen in Jackass 3D. Number 2. Alternative title. The title of Jackass 3D is way more important than the film itself, and yes, it is pretty iconic for me to actually say that, and I will always refer to it by that title. But believe it or not, here on some home media releases, Jackass 3D had its title changed to Jackass 3. Yeah, they literally changed the title from Jackass 3D to just Jackass 3, which is not fucking good. It's absolutely terrible. I will always refer to it as Jackass 3D and only Jackass 3D.
You guys look like idiots.
It's similar to how in Australia back in 1980, when Airplane was going to be released, that film was retitled to Flying High in order to avoid confusion and competition with that of the Concorde Airport 79, which came out in Australia in 1980. But despite the title change from Jackass 3D to just Jackass 3, on screen, it's actually known as Jackass 3D. Even in the TV listings, it's being referred to as Jackass 3, but on screen on the TV, it's known as Jackass 3D. And speaking of the Jackass 3 title, it was also used for the 3.5s as well, in which Jackass 3.5 was used to actually feature a lot of the scenes that didn't even make it into Jackass 3D, most of which were actually shown in the behind the scenes reel, as well as on the closing credits. As for the title change from Jackass 3D to just Jackass 3, it's kinda like how Airplane had its title changed to Flying High. So I say, fuck the Jackass 3 title and agree on the Jackass 3D title. Now before we get into number 1, here's a bonus fact. Jackass 3D marked the introduction debut of a Weezer song. The soundtrack to Jackass 3D was put out in October of 2010, and for some reason, it's basically featuring a lot of tracks that were featured in the film, including an operatic version of the song Corona by Minutemen, which was done by Squeaky Clean. But unlike the soundtracks to both Jackass 1 and Jackass 2, Jackass 3D does not have any audio clips from the film itself, though it did have CKY's return to the Jackass mythology with the song Afterworld, which was released in 2010, but the video didn't even come out until after Ryan Dunn's death. Oh yeah, by the way, didn't you know that Ryan Dunn died in 2011? Making Jackass 3D and Jackass 3.5 the last films to feature him? But what the Jackass 3D film soundtrack has is a Weezer song by the name of Memories. And no, I'm not talking about the second penultimate song from Cats, but which is actually a really good film by the way, so sorry critics, guess you had a field day with that one. But the Weezer song that was made to promote Jackass 3D, and the one that was featured in the closing credits, which actually features the recording session of that track.
All the memories, how can we make it back there, back there? I want to be there again.
And of course there was a video to go along with that track, which actually features the cast of Jackass. So just to recap, Jackass 1 had Andrew WK, Jackass 2 had Wolfmother, and Jackass 3D had Weezer, making We Want Fun, Joker and the Thief, and Memories a trilogy. But unlike the music videos for We Want Fun by Andrew WK and Joker and the Thief by Wolfmother, the video for Memories actually features clips from Jackass 3D. And I would recommend it after you watch the videos for We Want Fun and Joker and the Thief. The video for Memories, as well as the track itself, may be Weezer's finest and greatest. In fact, it may have came right around the same time as that I'm a Believer cover, which is fucking annoying, and that god-awful Shrek Forever After. I hate that cover version so much. But you can't actually make an idea of it at all, as it may have been compared to other tracks that was made for several Jackass films, such as Joker and the Thief from Jackass 2, and We Want Fun from Jackass 1. Number 1. Jackass 3D has the exact same box office numbers as Airplane. Jackass 3D was released on the 15th of October of 2010, and it was actually commercially successful, making only $171 million on the budget of $20 million. And you probably may be wondering, $171 million? What does that make you think of? Yes, if you're thinking about Airplane, you're correct. Jackass 3D has the exact same box office numbers as the worst film of all time as it was all the way back in 1980. It seems that Paramount must have had a field day back in 1980 and came all the way straight through 30 years later with the newest Jackass film at that time. It was given several praises by critics alike, and sure enough, it's actually a pretty good film right there. Even though it has title change from Jackass 3D to Jackass 3 as mentioned, and the total omission of a scene where Richard Costa gets punched in the face, some critics may refer to it as being reductive, insanely violent slapstick, while others complain that they're actually getting older. Well, say la fucking V, who do we know? If you think that the rest of the Jackass films are actually pretty good, then Jackass 3D may be the one to go for. And yes, it's actually way more better when being paired together with both Jackass 1 and Jackass 2. And of course, it was actually, at the time, last Jackass film. It would have been another 10 years until we would see them again in Jackass Forever, in which Johnny Knoxville has the white-colored hairstyle, and several years later for Best in Last, which not only had the distinction of including a robotic companion to the Jackass crew, but it also features a recreation of the opening to the first film.
Hello, I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is the end!
Although it was placed at the end of the film and not the beginning. And it was all smooth sailing from there, until Blue Sky Studios parodied it in the trailer for Ice Age Boiling Point, which features the same old O Fortuna tune that was used at the beginning of Jackass 1. And when I saw that trailer for Ice Age Boiling Point, it was in the showing for Toy Story 5. And right from that big massive smoke cloud, I thought it was gonna be a policy trailer for Jackass Best in Last, but turns out, we get a trailer for Ice Age Boiling Point instead. But aside from all that, Jackass 3D is among one of the greatest films ever to come out into the Jackass library. So if you want to go for it, then go for Jackass 3D. Because you probably might want to get punched by Bam Margera in the face if you don't.
And don't forget, Jackass 3D! 3D! Thank you. No tongue! No tongue! No tongue!
Recently, I've seen Jackass 3D on the 24-hour stream that was done by Paramount. To which after that, I actually gone all the way to the theater to watch Toy Story 5. Which of course had that obligatory Ice Age Boiling Point trailer that ripped off the opening to Jackass 1. To which I thought was going to be a policy trailer for Jackass Best and Last, only to turn out I was being bamboozled by Blue Sky Studios. Bad idea. And why are Bam's parents in the opening intro? I fucking hated them, they're annoying. Seriously, make them stop right the fuck now. So anyways, I hope you like me rambling on Jackass 3D and Jackass 3D! 3D! No time! No time! Goodbye.
Hello, my name's Johnny Knoxville, and I'm about to end this movie.
If you want to send some stuff to me so I can check out what you have sent, please send it to this exact address. However, you may only send some stuff that I am interested in. No airplane, okay? Because if you send something like this, I will make sure that I will tell you that I do not like this film at all. That and the individual 4K release, which had the exact same front cover artwork as the 40th anniversary steelbook. Come on, you gotta be kidding me. Unless if you would send me that Zucker Abraham Zucker 3 film collection set that I'm gonna get for top secret, which I actually do have a version of it and I will show it to you in 12 seconds. Well, you can probably tell that I'm not gonna get it for Airplane, I'm not gonna get it for Naked Gun, I'm only getting it just for top secret. However, I do think that you should send the set as a whole because, let's face it, it's a big deal. Well, we did get the 4K only edition for some reason, and yes, I got it for top secret. You see that? I told you I would get it. So make sure you send stuff like this, or this, or this, or this. And yes, even Airplane 2 the sequel. Oh, and get this, a special collector's edition of Twister, complete with a steelbook that features not only the secondary poster artwork, but the image of the pipe scene on the back. Heck yeah, I'm getting this. Well, actually, we do have the double feature set, which consists of Twister and Twister, so we're pretty dang close. And also Airplane 2 the sequel, which has this cover. Just look at those nuts. I can't keep up with them all. And even the one in the original theatrical poster. Like, look at it. And just look at this poster for the worst film of all time. I mean, come on, do they really need to tie that plane up into another? I mean, that part never actually happened in the film. I mean, they clearly just used a toy model plane. Like, come on, really? And yes, this is what the plane actually looks like in the film. And here's another image of that same goddamn plane model, also from the film. God damn it, I hate this film. And even here, in this Australian VHS cover for the film, where the plane looked completely different, where it had a much longer nose compared to the original poster's shorter nose, and they gave it some eyes and a full-on smile, making it look like that the plane is actually freaking laughing. And it looked terrifying. Thank God it didn't even make it into the DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K releases. And its different titles, like this one known as Flying High, but I would refer to the film with this title. And the same exact thing happened with Airplane 2 the sequel. And we found the reason why. Universal. And the Concorde Airport 79. Universal didn't even want the title of Airplane being used in all parts of the globe, so the title had to be changed. And as for the Concorde Airport 79, however, not only did they have to avoid competing against Airplane or Flying High in some parts of the globe, but they also changed the marketing campaign from "At twice the speed of sound, can the Concorde evade attack?" to "See it for the drama, see it for the laughs." Why? Because Airplane exists. Or so we thought. But not so in this case, because on the 4K release, yep, it's still called Airplane, not Flying High. Do you agree that it's still called Airplane and not Flying High? Do you? Do you? Well, I don't think so, you confusing title-changing nerd. I just hated it so much. So make sure you send in to this address, and I hope to God I will look at them. And in the words of the good old immortal named Connor McLeod,
there can be only one.
If you came to party, make some noise. If you came to party, make some noise.
Airplane just opened the door to Hollywood for us for as long as we wanted it. I mean, it really worked pretty well, and we understood that kind of humor, so we could do that.
You're gonna love this end screen we made by ourselves. 60 frames per second and all. Scariest plane of all time? Make sure you look at the logo for some reason, because it's getting wicked.